Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Philly Zoo at 2. We are here in the tortoise yard with a couple of our biggest and oldest creatures, and we've got a brand new sight to share with everybody today. People! Look at that! The zoo is open today for members. We open to the public tomorrow, so as you can see, we've got a nice masked up, socially distanced crowd here today. We're all enjoying the great outdoors, even though it is a little hot. Oh, she's chasing me around. We're joined by Sean.
What's going on, everybody?
Tortoise extraordinaire. So Sean, we have got some delicious celery for these guys today.
These guys are like little celery sharks now.
They are like little celery sharks. Oh, you've got a little celery beard here. Hello. She's right up on
Now,
me.
if you watch how these guys are eating this celery, they don't have teeth.
They do not.
It's called a beak, and they are literally just snipping and swallowing, which is kind of cool.
It is kind of cool.
So if you actually look at their serrations in their mouth, you can see it right in there. See those serrations?
They're actually a little intense.
Yeah. I mean, they look pretty intense, but just because they need to, it's like a pair of scissors, and they're using that to snip off the celery.
That's fun.
And they use this if they can't,
You want some?
they can't break off something. They actually use these front legs,
Do they?
and they'll kind of
I
push
just
it off.
saw that behavior. That was really cool. I don't think I've ever seen that before. They're a little
You see
messy.
it right there?
Yeah.
How she just did it?
They're a little messy. They've got celery leaves and bits just all over their face. I guess they don't really care though.
No, not at all. But
Here you go.
these guys sometimes aren't very good at sharing.
No, they're really not. We've already had several instances of celery
They're like,
heist.
I'm gonna steal it from you.
Yes, that's exactly. But I mean, who can blame them? Celery's delicious. Now, we were just talking right beforehand. You brought out a ton of celery for them. And yeah, they're big, but they don't eat like an obnoxious amount of food.
No, these guys are grazers. So in the wild, what
Yeah.
they'll do, they'll go throughout their little habitat. Sometimes it's a big habitat, and they'll just take little pieces of grass. They'll find patches that they like, and they'll go throughout the day grazing, just like a horse or a cow would do.
And we talked about how we brought out so much celery because it's basically just water and fiber. So they can just eat it and eat it and eat it, and it's basically like drinking water for them.
Exactly. It's just like a like if you could eat your water bottle.
If you could eat your water bottle, it would be celery.
Exactly.
I feel like we could probably do something with that. We should make a disposable water bottle
I know,
out of
right?
celery. Let's
Watch
get
out
some.
behind you. You got
Oh
a
my
mud
gosh.
monster.
Hello.
So speaking of mud as well,
Yeah.
you can look at little girl how she's all covered in mud. Now they actually utilize mud like a lot of animals do, so they don't sweat. Being a reptile, they rely on their environment to regulate their temperature. So that mud, when it evaporates, it actually cools them off.
That's pretty cool. Now
And
the
then
mud
it
pit,
also keeps the mosquitoes off of them as well.
that's a good point. Now the mud pit's new. Last time we were here, it was a little too early in the season.
Yes, it was a little too early. We have to wait till it starts to warm up, and it is plenty warm right now.
It is plenty warm right now. So maybe we'll go over. We have another tortoise who's still.
Yeah,
is that
little
Betty?
Betty's in there.
Little Betty's in there. So maybe we'll go over and visit Betty. Do you think she might want a celery?
Yeah, she might. She's I think she's passed out in the mud, but
Oh,
we could probably wake
maybe
her
we'll
up.
save one for her. Maybe I'll give her a little tap with some celery. We'll see. So we've talked a lot about these guys before, but the key questions that everybody asks are always the same. The most important thing that people want to know are how long do they live?
That is a great question.
It is.
So scientists don't know what the max age can be on these guys, but they have been known to get 100 plus years old. So probably the average in captivity is 100 or 120 years old. So 100 or 120 years old. And then there have been longevity records that have been 200 plus.
Wow. So I mean, the true answer is we don't fully know yet,
Exactly.
but we know it's a lot longer than we can live.
And then scientists are actually trying to figure out why did they live so long.
Yeah, of course.
And a big one, and it's all early days for this research. A lot of it is that their cells don't age,
That's amazing.
and then due to that fact,
Do
they
they
don't
have
get
telomeres?
cancer.
They don't get cancer. Do they have telomeres? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay, so just a little quick science lesson for everybody at home. Telomeres are the bits at the end of your cell that every time your cell replicates, you lose a little bit of your telomere, but it's necessary in order for cell replication. So the existence of telomeres is actually the reason that cells eventually die, and that is the cause of mortality, essentially. So asking whether or not an animal has telomeres is actually really important.
Again, they've been doing genetic studies. I think they use some of genetic code from Lonesome George.
That's amazing,
Set
yeah.
in stone.
Ooh, it just got hot out here. We got some sunshine.
Yeah, I know.
Now, how about these temps? How are these guys handling the temps? They're a warm weather species.
So if
what are they
you,
normally used to?
when we first came out here, they were all along this wall.
They were.
So even though
Who wants some
it,
celery?
even though it's very hot in the direct sun, you'll see these guys go in the direct sun to warm up, and then they'll thermoregulate by going in the shade. They'll go in the water and the mud.
Oh.
And then
that's
throughout
nice.
the day, you'll see them moving around the yard.
Yeah.
A lot of times when it's full sun like this, end of the day, you'll see them in the shaded areas.
Yes, that's true. We do often see, and there's lots of shade in this yard, which is nice, but there's also lots of sun, which is really important, because that means when it's a little bit cooler than they like it, we can still let them go outside, because there's so much sunshine for them.
And you just see how she couldn't chew that, so she just swallowed it.
That is incredible. Now, okay, let's do a little tortoise roundup here. How much do each of these guys weigh? Because they're pretty.
So females, these are all females right here, and they average 200 to 300 pounds. So mommy was 275 last time we weighed her, and probably a lot of them are in that same kind of ballpark. They're all in like that 200s.
Okay, and then we have Grunt, who's actually over here.
Grunt,
He's a little bit of
when we
a
weighed him
less
last
social.
time, he weighed as much as some of the females.
Really?
He wasn't that 500 plus pounds.
Yeah, because the maximum for these, and these are, this is actually a mixture. We have two species out here. We've
Yes,
got
that's correct.
Aldabra
So-
and Galapagos.
2 Galapagos females.
Here,
You can
I'm
see
sorry,
that
sweetie, I'm
boxier
sorry.
head, and they look a little more like ET. Boxy head. And then if you look at all these guys right here,
I think she's
see how they have a little more of a triangular nose? And if you look between their eyes, it's more rounded. Where if you look at between her eyes, it's flat. And that's the best way you can tell the difference between the two.
And now for these species, what is the size difference? Would you say that one is generally larger than the other?
Yeah, so the Galapagos tortoises happen to be bigger.
Yeah.
So the males get a lot bigger than the males of the Aldabra.
Yes.
Now we have saddleback shell,
Yeah.
so that's a different way the shells look. So we have domed, this is a dome shell, and then we have a saddleback. And then there's more of a pronounced saddleback when you get to Galapagos tortoises,
Yeah, and they have
where it's
all
a
the way up.
big, huge ridge right here. It actually comes up,
And that ridge
it
serves
allows
an
their
important purpose.
yeah, so it allows their neck to actually go past their shell,
Like a
so they
giraffe.
can eat. Yeah, exactly. So they can eat leaves off the ground.
So if we
Where
had a
these guys
really
are more
big-
grazers.
Yes, they're grazers. But if
Yep.
we had a really big saddleback with a nice pronounced ridge, they'd be able to get all these things hanging
Yeah,
down here.
exactly.
Yeah.
And saddleback tortoises happen to be a little more on the arid side. So they're the islands that they
That
live
makes
on
sense. They have
don't
fewer
have a lot of
choices.
luscious grass.
Yep,
Where
absolutely.
Santa Cruz is more of a nicer habitat to live in, where there's a lot of. It's actually
It's a
one of
tropical
the,
paradise.
yes. There's a lot of farmers that live there. Let's see. Close up.
That's a nice big chomp. That is some quality tortoise action. Now, what are some of their favorite foods? So like they're tearing up this celery, but what do they really like?
Now these guys will actually, they love, just like a lot of people, they like sweets,
Yep.
but we don't give them a lot of sweets because it's not good for them. So if they could have anything, they probably would love watermelon and melon
Oh,
and
yeah.
strawberries, all that fun stuff. But also they like flowers.
Flowers.
So
what kind of flowers?
they can see, we give them zinnia,
Cool. Yeah.
and then also dandelion and that kind of stuff as well. Dandelion greens.
Yeah.
And rose of Sharon.
Oh, very specific. I like their taste.
Now these guys also, on the islands that they're from, they eat a lot of like just grasses.
Yeah.
And
As you can
sometimes
see,
they
they
bust
eat a
in
lot of grasses.
since there's a lot of farms there too, whatever they're growing.
But okay.
So
that
there
makes
is a lot of, which happens with a lot of animals, like even around here, where there's a lot, when there's a lot of
Yes.
bears, where there's people and animal contact, where they kind of cross paths. So sometimes there's pictures of these guys, or the actual Galapagos tortoises, in people's houses, like in your garage,
sense. Like in your garage.
where they're just chilling out in your garage, and you can't really, because there's a lot of sanctions and rules where you can't.
You can't like pick them up and move them and put them someplace
Exactly.
else. Hi, I don't have any more celery. I
I
would
know.
give you a neck rub, but you don't seem
They're
interested.
like, uh-oh, the sharks went through all this.
So that's
celery.
actually a really cool thing. Like every so often, you'll actually see us giving them little neck rubs. Why do we do that?
They actually like it.
That's
It's
it.
one of
Like
those
there's
things
no
where they-
fancy answer. They just
Yeah.
like it. I don't have anything.
There's all these, why do they like it? And it's
Well,
just that
yeah.
they
You don't
probably
even
like
wanna
the way
know.
it feels.
Yeah.
There's some theories that it's because Darwin finch, when they eat the parasites off of them, it's a symbiotic relationship. The bird gets a meal, and the tortoise tortoises get rid of their parasites. That's the only thing they can't get rid of, is when they have these little ticks and stuff on them. You see how?
So that makes sense.
And a cool thing too, if you guys don't remember from last time, these guys don't eat my finger, but they can actually drink through their nostrils.
Oh, that's so cool! I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite facts. Do you want
So they have specialized little flaps on their nose right here that they can close those off, and they can just slurp it up and then get a nice little drink.
Slurp it up the nose.
Because literally, those islands that they come from, sometimes the puddles form,
Yeah.
and it's not big enough where they can stick their whole face in to get
Got it. That
enough,
makes sense.
enough suction.
So they have to be really careful.
Yeah, and again, this shell is their body.
Yes, that's always a question we get: is can they come out of their shell, or do they get a new one every few
So
years?
if you look at it, it's all connected, and this is actually their skeletal system. So they are in, their skeleton's on the outside pretty much.
Yeah.
So if you have it, they're keratin, same stuff our fingernails and our hair is made of. This, their backbone's in here,
Yeah.
and their ribs is all a part of this.
We like to call it a bone sandwich.
Yeah, exactly,
Yep.
a bone sandwich. So carapace and then plastron. What are you doing? She's like,
She is aggressively affectionate right now. Yeah.
she's like, celery.
Oh, there we go.
I know, if there was going to be a Muppet, a new Muppet, it would be a celery monster.
It would be a celery monster. All right, what kind of questions are we getting from the audience?
Why are their feet turned in?
Ooh.
So their feet go like this. So pretty much it's the way their legs can go retract up, and it's like landing gear.
Yeah.
So their heads can go all the way in, and then there's this hole where you can see their little face. Their legs actually come in and protect that hole. So if you look at all this stuff right here, it's all armored up. So that goes in and it protects the little hole. These guys don't have any natural predators where they come from, so when they get
Except
this
when they're
big,
babies.
yes. So when they're adult size like this, there's nothing that can really hurt them. So they can, that's why you see these guys when they're sleeping.
They're just splayed out.
They're splayed out with
Yeah.
their neck completely on the ground.
We actually, sometimes when you come to visit the zoo, you might see the tortoises, and they might look a little dead. Odds are
I'm
they're
gonna
not.
eat your shoes.
These tortoises are just all up in our face today. Odds are they're just taking a real hard nap. What other questions can we answer?
What are the differences between turtles and tortoises?
That is a great question. So, if you look at these guys being tortoises, they have a heavier body. They also walk on their toenails. And if you look at those back feet, they're like little pillars, like elephant-looking feet. So they're all meant to walk on land and over rocks, so like Jeeps,
Like Jeeps.
or monster trucks. Where turtles, they either have clawed, webbed, or flipper feet, and also have a little more streamlined body. They're a little more either near or by the water.
Most of them.
Yes.
There's always
so
exceptions to
box
every rule.
turtles, mostly on they have a terrestrial lifestyle, but they do go in the water. So they have more of a dome shell, where if you ever see, probably a common one would be red ear slider.
Red ear slider, yeah.
A little more streamlined shell, and they have webbed back feet with claws.
Nice.
And then you have the opposite, a
Yes.
sea turtle,
Sea turtle.
which are more, they're 100% aquatic.
Yep.
So flippers on the back end and the
They
front.
can't even really walk on land. They can just kind of.
Exactly.
Amazing. Do we have time for one more? I have no idea what time it is.
Can they feel it when you touch their shell?
Ah.
Now, if you're at home and you go like this with your fingernail, so you just scratch your fingernail, you can feel the vibrations, but you can't feel it like it's on your skin.
Your fingernail and your bones typically, like this, does not have its own nerve endings
Yes, but you
So-
can feel the vibrations.
in it. Yep. So if
So
we,
they
if we
can
go
feel
like
vibrations,
this, little
but
pat
they
there,
can't
they can feel that.
feel the actual sensation.
Of course. And we would not recommend going up to a turtle or tortoise in the wild and giving them a little pat on the back. Generally speaking, when you find an animal in the wild, don't touch them. But we have a very good relationship with our animals here, so we have different ways of announcing our presence, particularly with animals that do not see or hear the world the same way that we do. It's important for us to either verbally or physically announce ourselves, either by saying hello to them. So you might hear us say hello to a certain animal, and it's actually important for us to do that. We're not just doing it to be fun. We're doing it to make sure they know we're
there's
there.
a lot of research on tortoises being done now that the way they communicate
Yeah.
is very low frequencies, so we can't
Cool.
hear it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Like
of
elephants.
talk going on, but we just don't know we can't hear it.
That's really cool.
It's not audible to our ears.
Tortoises are amazing. They speak in languages that we don't understand and sounds that we can't hear. They can see colors and light that we can't see or process. They're just, you look at a tortoise and you're like, I know what that is. It's a tortoise. You don't know. There's so much more going on with them. They're such amazing creatures. And who knew that they liked spa days and neck rubs?
Yeah. There's a lot of good researchers out there.
There is.
And
Field
one last
researchers.
question: which tortoise is the oldest?
That would be right here,
Yeah.
Mommy. So she arrived here in 1932. She was 6 or 7 when she got here. She came directly from Santa Cruz Island, and we believe she is 95, 96, 95 years old.
We should note that she's one of the rare exceptions. Animals in zoos today typically never come from the wild,
Yeah.
except in the case of extreme conservation need. So if we find a species and there's only 25 of them left, which is something that happened to a couple of bird species from Guam in the 1980s, we will collect as many of them as possible, bring them to zoos and breed them to save them. Believe it or not, in the time that Mommy was collected from Santa Cruz, that's actually what was happening, is that there was a conservation issue and scientists were concerned that these tortoises were not going to survive. On top of that, there were no rules or regulations to prevent people from taking these animals off the islands. So there was a lot going on that does not happen anymore. But Mommy here has lived to tell some tales. So she's been around for a long time and she can remember all sorts of things probably.
Now, the reason a lot of zoos do that is for they want to make sure that these guys don't disappear forever. So it's
Exactly.
insurance colonies.
Yep.
And it actually helped Galapagos species
It did.
save itself almost.
They're like a
His
really
name
good
was
success
Diego.
story.
You can look him up. I think he was actually retired recently, and they put him back on the island that they came from,
That's amazing.
just because he saved his own species.
Good for him.
So he was over at San Diego Zoo. He got shipped back to the Galapagos Islands to pretty much breed all the females.
Yeah.
Saved itself.
Amazing.
Yep.
These guys are incredible creatures. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today. We are so happy to be back at the zoo and still on your phones and your laptops and your computers to bring you all the joy of Philadelphia Zoo. Just a quick reminder that we are open to the public starting tomorrow. So if you don't have your tickets yet, you can go to our website. You can see every piece of information that you need in order to come and visit us. We'd love to welcome you back here as soon as you're ready to come back and see us. Well, we'll see you next week for a brand new Philly Zoo at 2 next Wednesday.
Thanks
In the
for watching,
meantime-
everybody.
Thanks for watching, everybody. In the meantime, thanks at home, everybody. We'll see you soon.